What? Tails? Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 17 of Sketch Watch Play. I am John Fleury.
And I'm Colin Byrd, who is totally not Chris Wade.
Yes, this is our first Christless episode. Not Christless, 'cause that sounds similar. I guess, well, I'm agnostic, so technically I'm Christless. But this is not a show to talk about religion. Yes, full disclosure, we had been, the plan for a while had been all... me, you, and Chris, but we would meet at Chris's house, and this would be our first time doing a podcast where we're all in the same room. And literally, like, a day before, something came up for Chris where he just, like, he was busy and he couldn't make it. So, but he actually did. I was at his insistence, like, go ahead with this. It's a good thing we have a guest. And what was the other thing? He's like, my thing was we were kind of overdue for an episode because we always aim for every 2 weeks, and it's been like 3 already. So listeners may remember Colin from the episode where we talked, where he and Chris talked Your Name, I talked ukulele, and all three of us talked Ghost in the Shell. That was a fun episode. That was like one of the most in-depth like discussions about like a serious topic, but I think you and Chris had some really good points to make about it.
Yes, like Chris's secret hologram wife that I am never forgetting.
You invented. I credit you with that. Like, you misunderstood, and we just went off from there. And even though I've come to discover that the only thing that sets him off more is rabbits.
Oh, he's going to have so much fun in, when is that, February?
What's in February?
Kingdom Battle.
Oh, no, that comes out next week.
Oh, he's going to have so much fun then.
Oh, we talked about it on our E3 episode. He's just refusing to play it. He's mad that it looks fun.
Well, that's too bad for him, because I'm going to come over and I'm going to bring it in. It's going to be like...
Okay, I don't know if he's going to listen to this, so he probably will. I'm kind of thinking about just doing a drawing of a holographic Peach Rabbit anime wife.
Yes!
Like as a birthday, like a rabbit with big anime eyes going ugu or something. It would be his... That's like he'd probably say, like, this is what my nightmares look like. But so we've been hyping this up. The other reason I didn't want to delay this episode anymore is because of how much we hyped it up on the show and on like our social media. By the way, you can find us on Twitter at SketchWatchPlay and Facebook.com/SketchWatchPlay. And I'm also I've completely finished getting my YouTube channel uploads of the show up to date. You can find. So you can find that from now on, episodes will go up on YouTube the same day they go up on like iTunes and the like via Libsyn at my channel. And you can find all my social media like Twitter, Tumblr, and such on Behonkis, BEHONKISS. And just to bring people up to speed, Colin, where can people find you?
You can pretty much just Google SkipperWing, SkipperWing. I am quite proud of the fact that the first page and a half is entirely me.
That's cool.
It's Twitter, SkipperWing, Facebook, SkipperWing, and my email, which you can probably guess. I'm not going to give you that out over the air. You can also check out also YouTube. SkipperWing. Yes.
You do a lot of fun drawings, but your main project is still a kind of motion comics superhero theme called The Crimson Fly.
Yes, a young mutant finds out that their disabilities are not disabilities, but actually superhero powers.
Yeah.
So what does a kid who's got way too much time on their hands and reads way too many comic books do? Go out and fight crime. Updates every Monday.
Yeah, and it's cool. I've been writing to you multiple times at local like conventions lately. Even at AwesomeCon a while ago. I didn't know you were going to be there, but you've been doing booths for Crimson Fly and such, and doing it, like, constant promoting of it, and that's really cool.
Oh yeah, the next one will actually be a small press expo, September 16th.
Oh, I'll try to make that if I can. It's going to be a matter of time and money. But actually, yeah, just to bring people up to speed on some other things for co-hosts, Chris was recently... he recently did his first solo guest star on Generation Animation, which we've collaborated with both on their show and in terms of our previous guests. Look them up on fanoffmedia.com. He joined them to discuss Howl's Moving Castle, as they're doing a month where each week they discuss a Miyazaki project. It was an amazing episode because they have a tendency to go off on some of the best tangents. So somehow talking about Howl's Moving Castle led to them discussing what would a Christmas Carol would be like if all the ghosts were replaced with the Burger King saying nothing.
Oh God.
It was awesome. And it drove Chris to a laughing fit. And what was the other thing? Oh, yeah. Very relevant to what we're going to talk about today. And full disclosure, because there's so much to talk about, we're not going to do any recent media. We thankfully don't have a time limit like we have before, but there's just so much to pack in that I feel like by the time we're over, we can still do another episode in the future. Mm-hmm. But I've been still doing stuff on YouTube. The big thing I've finished lately, because I talked about my Crash Bandicoot review, I did a similar format where I'm still doing like the animated cutaways, but I got myself immersed in the crazy world that is PC modding for Sonic Generations. And there's stuff in there that's like legitimately awesome, like people putting all the daytime levels from Unleashed in there, levels from even like 06, but with the good mechanics of Generations, to character mods or replacements that you can play as Tails and Knuckles. They can both glide and have voice clips, and it feels genuine, up to here's a real Hedgehog, here's Donald Duck, and here's Twilight Sparkle. Yeah. And the other thing, I started a new job recently.
Nice.
In conjunction with my normal housing job, which is, it's fine, but I've never been into housing. I started working in a movie theater. The ArcLight Bethesda, it's kind of, if you work there, you kind of do a bit of everything. So concessions, cleaning, tickets, yada, yada, yada. But it's been fun so far. But I've been realizing, because of the posters, we say, like, oh, I'm going to be working here when the My Little Pony movie comes out.
Ooh.
And I've been talking to coworkers like, I'm going to be paying attention to what the attendance of that movie are like. Because we all know. Actually, no, there was one new coworker there who was not aware of the Brony movement until we brought it up, and he was like, "You're kidding me."
It's like, just ask Google.
No, don't ask Google. You'll get some fucked up stuff. I feel so bad for like little girls who just want to Google their favorite characters, and you know what? To be honest, like if you're a brony, I don't automatically think you're dumb or anything, because I watched the show and it's harmless. I guess it's just you're the kind of brony who takes things in a bad direction.
Well, I mean, it's that sort of everything that's wrong with the internet is, oh, you're complaining that XYZ social justice warrior movement has ruined my childhood, while you are literally ruining the childhood of millions of little girls by making them unable to Google their favorite topic. Yeah,
and you cut out for a second. I think there might have been some delay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's being weird.
Yep, we're used to it, me and Chris. I'll just edit that out. But the really funny thing is I texted to my brother Patrick, past guest on the show, look up our Pokemon episode. The cast list for that movie is insane.
Oh, of course. They really want people to
they kept the character voices, the main characters. You still got like Tara Strong and but like all the new characters like Emily Blunt, Michael Pena, Sia, Kristen Chenoweth.
Well, I mean, it's that sort of frustrating reality of, oh, we cast the names that you're going to recognize.
Yeah, well, that's been the standard in Hollywood for a while. I'm glad they didn't recast the main characters. That would have been. That's what they're doing with the Lego Ninjago movie coming out. I have a cousin's kid who's mad into the existing show, and he's been confused. Like, is this a reboot? And like, yeah, so they can justify new voices. And well, also, I'm sure a lot of people who've seen it haven't seen the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's that sort of surface level. Oh, hey, here's the part that you care about, where I'm like, oh my god, this was animated by Yutaka Nakamura. Ah! But it's like, who's Yutaka Nakamura? He's, never mind. It's got the Black Power Ranger in it.
Okay, but who is Yutaka Nakamura?
He is a story animator in Japan, responsible for a lot of action animation. His credits are kind of endless. If your guests know the end fight from the Sword of the Stranger, I think it is.
Oh, I've heard of it.
With the blonde dude and the dude with the ponytail.
Mm-hmm.
Then yeah, that's him. Lot of
it sounds familiar. Mm-hmm. His name and Sword of the Stranger. I have heard of Sword of the Stranger. There's a lot of anime I haven't seen though, and a lot of like people, staff members other than directors. I'm not very good at knowing.
Well, and I mean, and to be fair, no one is. But that's literally a conversation for a tangent for another day.
Right. But I have a feeling we're still going to be going off on tangents. Do you want to dive into our main subject now that
absolutely.
Bring up to speed out of the way?
He collects how many? Wow, where does somebody put all those gold rings? You know what? I don't know. I keep forgetting to ask.
People, this is something like another reason I feel like we should do a follow-up is because I know Chris is into what we're about to talk just as much as us, if not more possibly. It's because of the release of the most critically successful entry in ages, for one thing, but also just because there's so much to talk about. We are about to talk all things Sonic the Hedgehog. Am I the only one who likes the end goal music in 1 and 2 better than 3?
That might just be you. I'm sorry, dude.
Because 3's been used in everything else. Like, I remember like his Smash victory music is that, and I'm like, all right, I guess. But I don't know how much setup we really need to do for this, because it's one of the most iconic and long-lasting video game franchises ever, and there's been like so much outside of the games too. It's because of what a sensation it had become when it first started, and what a rapid following it still has today, despite a rocky latter history. But to start off, Colin, what are your first memories of either encountering or playing Sonic?
Oh man, there's several stories there. So my first one would probably be in the. This was actually overseas, but my first memories of Sonic would be Chemical Plant Act 2, and just like watching this pinball just go through these tubes, and it would be really, really fast, and I would just sit there and just like spin dash I would sit there and just rev the spin dash, and that would be all I would do, because I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's like, you go faster when you let it go. What?
So wait, was Sonic 2 the first one you played?
Oh yeah, like I didn't find out later that there was a Sonic 1, or rather that Sonic 1 was the first one and that there was no spin dash in it until like years later when my sister was getting her teeth cleaned. And so, no, she wasn't getting her teeth cleaned. Her patella had dislocated, and so we were sitting in the hospital. And so they just like, okay, well here you can play the Sonic game. And I'm like, cool. And I'm like, where's this? Why can't I spin dash?
Where's Tails?
Yeah.
What is this? Yeah, it is a little weird going back to the first one and just you got to build up that speed manually.
Yeah, and then actually Sonic the Hedgehog is actually responsible for my animation career.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know this. Please elaborate.
Because the first time I'd ever seen I was big on anime and stuff, but a friend of mine had owned Sonic CD. And so those of you who've played Sonic CD, or rather know what Sonic CD is most famous for, know where I'm going with this. Like that opening animated music video.
Yeah. Sonic Boom, the good Sonic Boom.
Oh yeah. And it was interesting because it was fascinating because like by this point I'd played so many video games and platformers that the mechanics of a platformer didn't seem very odd to me. Like it didn't really occur to me how fascinating it was that this character is going like 3 times the speed of sound, or being able to leap like 5 times your height in midair, or being able to break through solid rock. But like seeing that music video put it in an entirely new context for me, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Nice. So that was your Iron Giant, basically.
Yeah, which explains a lot about me.
Huh? I wish I knew. You don't know what Chris's first exposure is, do you?
No.
All right. Well, that's what a follow-up episode could always be for. Mine is actually interesting because being introduced to Sonic was also the first time I became aware of the concept that there could be video games that weren't Nintendo.
Yeah.
I remember the first one came out in 91 when I was 4. I had some cousins who were a little older than me, and I always enjoyed visiting their house because I remember like they were into similar stuff. Like I remember that being where I first saw Ninja Turtles 2. They had one of them had a poster for the first Turtles movie on their wall. But I remember I walked in, back then we always played like Mario. I think they had an NES with like Mario 3 and stuff. But I walked in and they were playing the first Sonic, and I was like, whoa, what Nintendo game is this? And they're like, this is Sega. This is Sonic the Hedgehog. And so it wasn't just me that becoming how I was first aware of Sonic and Sega, but how I was aware of like, oh, there can be competition in this realm.
Yeah.
Because for those of you who didn't grow up or didn't follow the Sega Nintendo rivalry in the 90s before Sony and Microsoft entered the picture and Sega went third party, it was nuts. It was an intense. I think we all have memories of arguing at school which system is better, who's better, Mario or Sonic. And to be honest, in those old days, playing Sonic was a luxury to me rather than something I could actually do, because my parents bought me a Super NES and Game Boy for like Christmas and birthday gifts, and even though I begged them, because I was too young to save up for anything else, I begged them to get me a Genesis and later PS1, they were like, no. settle with the Nintendo and stuff. And granted, I understand, and the Super Nintendo is my favorite systems ever, so I got over it. But so every time I went to a friend or even like some sort of other place, like I remember there was like a kid's barbershop in my area that had a Genesis set up. So playing Genesis and Sonic in particular was a luxury.
Yeah, I feel that. Like, actually, I started off on the other side of the console wars. I was not a massive Sonic fan. Because,
did you have the Nintendo then?
No, I didn't get my Nintendo system until I got the N64.
Okay, so you didn't own games for a while.
Yeah, but the reason why I wanted Mario to win that was because I thought Mario was the underdog. I thought that Nintendo was going to lose that war.
I've read about it. There was a point from like 93, 94 where Genesis was winning sales-wise, and apparently what turned the tide was Donkey Kong Country.
Oh, wow. I've learned something new.
Because, that's when 3D was becoming all the rage, and Nintendo was like, hey, look what we did.
So what's fascinating is that for a while, because me and my sister, we shared the N64 and then we shared the GameCube. Mm-hmm. But then my dad, he got his income tax return, and he decided to do something nice for us. So my sister, she got the Game Boy Advance.
Nice.
But I wanted a console all to myself, so I got the Dreamcast. And from there, I was reintroduced into this longer-haired, talking Sonic who went even faster than the Genesis days.
Yep, and all his friends.
Yep. Well, in those days, the friends were cool. Like
no. Oh, we'll get to the Dreamcast days. I want to talk like each generation.
So yeah, we'll go from there. You'll hear about it then.
Oh yeah, we'll hear about all of them. So do you want to? I guess we can talk. At least I want to. We want to talk about a lot of the main games, and also I feel like the cartoons are another big component to Sonic. And we also wanted to touch on the Archie comics because there's like and maybe just whatever oddities come our way. So I guess, do you want to go in like release order for the games, or do you want to jump around?
Let's go chronological.
All right. So yeah, you start with this original Genesis. Technically a trilogy because we got Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, and for those who don't recall, they released Sonic 3 first, then Sonic and Knuckles, and they had a big deal back then where they had a unique, because everything was on a cartridge back then. Sonic and Knuckles, you could flip the top of the cartridge and put the Sonic 3 card on top to make it one big game, Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Yep, lock-on technology, the first DLC.
It was, because they couldn't do DLC back then. Apparently it was because they had intended it to be one big game, but because it was taking so long, that's how they came up with the idea, split it in half and do a workaround.
Which is unfortunate, because I feel like that mentality would haunt them later on, but we'll get to that.
Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about there, but yeah. I remember... I guess we can also count Sonic CD. Just it wasn't one that was as easily accessible because nobody had a Sega CD. Actually, that's one I'm fond of. That was technically the first Sonic game I ever owned, because when my parents bought a laptop in '98, they also bought as a little gift the PC port of Sonic CD.
Ooh, yeah.
And I played the crap out of that, even though I never beat it. Actually, I didn't beat any of the originals. They get pretty tough. Go ahead.
And to be honest, I have two things to thank for my being able to beat them. One, emulation, which I do not officially endorse. Cough, cough, wink, wink. And two, one Christian Whitehead, who will become important very, very soon.
At the end of Talking Games. In the episode, probably.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that when we get to it.
We will. But yeah, I actually have been revisiting the old ones lately. I do intend to try and fully beat them because the Xbox 360 ports actually support save states too, thankfully.
Oh god, yeah, because that's the only way I could get the good endings for those games.
Oh god, how did people get all the Chaos Emeralds back then? They must have devoted themselves.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, 3 actually has save files, and once you clear the game, then you can go back and revisit anywhere you want to. Oh,
you can manually revisit zones after beating it?
Mm-hmm. So
I didn't know that. That's helpful. I thought it just auto-saved after each zone. You couldn't go back because does Mania have the same feature? Because it auto-saves after each zone's cleared.
Oh yeah, but you have to beat the game first before you can replay.
It's better than not being there at all. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember. Do you have a favorite of the original trilogy?
3. 3 and Knuckles, and I never count them separately because
no, you shouldn't. They're intended to be the same game.
Sonic 3 and Knuckles is not just my favorite of the trilogy, but it's also the best from a critical standpoint, the best Sonic game ever.
Yeah, it's beloved. I can see that. Mm-hmm. I think I might lean a little bit towards 2. I guess it worked. I'm stammering like hell. No,
It's all good.
I think it comes down to two reasons. Actually, just one. I think it just nails the basics. Because 3 adds a lot of stuff that can be a little overwhelming to me at points. Like, here's the zip line, here's the snowboard. I'm like, I just gotta go fast. And and just it's a nitpick. They changed Sonic and Tails character sprites, and I like the 1 and 2 style a little better.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think everybody did, because you saw like with Mania, they sort of went back to that.
Yes, it's like, still more detail, but like I think in 3 they were trying a little too hard. Maybe they were trying to make them look more edgy, because that was Sonic's thing, because that's what the 90s were all about. Like, they got attitude. Hell, even one of the cartoon theme songs, he can really move. He's got an attitude. Like that's what was how they were selling Sonic as a Mario killer. Like, Mario was just like that jolly plumber, and Sonic was like sleek and rebellious and edgy. Like, literally, he has spines. So I think 3 they were trying to emphasize that.
Well, I think also with 3, and this is also another one of their poor design habits, is innovation for innovation's sake. Mm-hmm. Like, you didn't really need to update the Sonic 2 sprites. They worked the way they worked as is. I
think that might be the biggest sin of Sonic as a whole in game-wise, but we'll get to that. But I don't want to discredit 3 and Knuckles, because I still think it's a blast. And one is really good, but it's still the worst because it's too basic. Like, no tails, lesser special stages, just not as interesting zone layout or ideas. But it is fun, and it's fun to go back to and see how it started, kind of the same way you go back to Mario 1. And anything else you want to bring up about the original trilogy?
I love them. I like what they innovated, but I also feel like they sort of brick-walled on them, like they didn't really know what to do afterwards, which is a shame.
Yeah. At least 20 years later, they figured it out.
Well, I would actually argue that Sonic Team in its purest form, without like the addition of additional like developers, never figured it out. Yeah. Like when they reintroduced 2D with Sonic Advance, that was handed off to Dimps, and then when they reintroduced it again with 4, with 4, that was still also Dimps.
Oh, you mean Unleashed?
No. I was gonna say like with Mania.
Yeah.
That developer, that's still an external developer. So I would argue that that Sonic Team didn't really know how to, like, their idea of Sonic changed. And it changed irrevocably in a way that they could never go back, which is unfortunate. Yeah,
and I guess we can get into the start of that. Let's talk the Dreamcast days, particularly the 2 adventure games.
So while Sonic 1 and 2, Sonic 2 was the first one I had ever played, and Sonic CD was the first one that defined most of my love for Sonic. Sonic Adventure was the first one I had ever owned. Like, no strings attached. Yeah,
I'm kind of similar to boat because I never owned a Sega console. So after the CD port on PC, the first console Sonic game I owned was Adventure 2 Battle, because that was the first time they went third party with it.
Oh yeah, and it's weird because with the adventure games, it would start a trend that kind of like diminishes like 3D Sonic in my eyes, and not necessarily 3D Sonic as a whole, but the tendency to split the gameplay between Sonic and insert gimmick here, and that's really what they are.
Yeah, they're very ambitious games, especially for the time, and they were mind-blowing back when they came out, both because of the ambition and because it was kind of our first sample of like the power with respect from graphics in that console generation, since it was before PS2. But the problem is a lot of the gameplay concepts just don't come together like you'd hope, especially coming back to them like 15 years later. Like, for the record, I have replayed them. I still like the majority of the Sonic Shadow stages. I think in Adventure 1 and 2, their later stages get a little too chaotic. The Tails levels in Adventure 1 are fun too, because they're basically, retreads of Sonic. Knuckles and Rouge, not so much. I think even back then I wasn't big on the scavenger hunt mentality. I did like the shooting gallery ones with E102 and then Tails and Eggman, but they're very simple. And what do we need to say about Big the Cat?
Well, honestly, I think Big the Cat
works. Infamous.
Well, he works, just not in a Sonic game.
Yeah, you're still like, what is this doing in Sonic?
Which, I mean, and the thing is that, like, you'll notice that to draw Mario comparisons, Mario never experiments while he does experiment, it's on a per game basis.
Yeah, Sunshine experimented, but it was still central to it built on established Mario mechanics.
Well, not just that, but like it never like suddenly said, okay, if you want to get this star, you're gonna have to play an RPG for the next 3 hours. I'm like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
I didn't come here to do that. Why would you put that there? Whereas Sonic was like, okay, well, you had fun with Sonic for 3 hours. Okay, now you gotta play as Knuckles. What if I don't want to play as Knuckles?
Well, then you don't get the true ending. You don't get Super Sonic.
And I mean, that's just a very benign thing. So like with Big was fine, and I think the fans overreacted a lot. Mm-hmm. But they were right to react. No, don't be weird again.
Okay, you said they were right to react, and then I lost you.
Oh yeah, so like the fans were right to react about this change in gameplay within the game. Because Big is solid as a character and as a character archetype in terms of design, in terms of gameplay design, just not for a Sonic game.
Yeah. Also, he's voiced by Duke Nukem.
Yeah, that was weird.
That's the craziest. The voice acting is insane in Adventure 1 and 2. I mean, it's not the worst, but it's cheesy. Oh, but the cutscenes in Adventure 1 are amazingly bad. Just the character animation. You could tell Sega, this is their first time trying to do that kind of thing in engine, and now it's just a mess in the best way. Adventure 2 dramatically improved in that regard.
Which is fascinating because you look at a cinematic for the later Sonic 3D games, the animation is gorgeous.
Especially when they do pre-rendered stuff. I think they got Blur Studio to do those though, and they're like top class, even though they got them for games like Shadow in 06.
Yeah, like the opening to Sonic Unleashed, which we'll get to in a bit.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah, but those early days were painful.
And I just to touch on, did you ever play Sonic Shuffle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It came with the Dreamcast, and that was, it's fascinating because I think there's a good idea there.
Yeah.
Tacking a story onto Mario Party is not inherently a bad thing.
Yeah.
The card system, as using that, kept jumping onto the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fix and using the card system for battling, not a bad idea. But that's always the problem with Sonic. There's never a dearth of bad ideas, just really, really poor executions. And
the fact that they have trouble sticking to something. Even if it works, which I think we'll get to in some of the later games. My overassessment is that I think you can get the adventure ports for $10 these days, and I think it's worth that. I actually think a good way to sum it up is: have you ever seen Pro Jared on YouTube?
I've heard of him.
He reviewed Sonic Adventure 2 and summed it up as, this experience is like eating Lucky Charms. You sit through the oats to get to the marshmallows.
Yeah. Speaking of the Sonic Adventure games, before we move on, the stories, I think we should touch on.
I remember that was something I was really championing back then, despite the cutscenes and voice acting stuff. And that's something I still kind of, because they've gotten better in production values, obviously, and that's something I still wish Mario would try again. That's just personal preference. I like my games to have stories, and platformers more these days, they tend to just be like, nah.
Well, what's fascinating about the Sonic stories is that in a vacuum, without comparison to other mediums, the game stories are really, really well done for what they need to be.
They're in-depth for Sonic. I remember being surprised for how dark Adventure 2 went with the Maria backstory.
Mm-hmm. I mean, heck, even Adventure 1 somehow giving these 6 characters a singular narrative to wrap their heads around.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I think that's also the start of some other flaws that would sort of coalesce in 06, which we'll talk about later.
Oh, we absolutely will.
One of the big things that bothered me was that Sonic really didn't have much to do with the story of Adventure.
Yeah. I don't know who technically had the most to do with it. E102 and Big were very much doing their own things, too.
Mm-hmm. But I think Knuckles and Tails got the biggest moments, and
because they fought with Robotnik the most, I feel.
Mm-hmm. And then also the character development for Tails and Amy, where Tails starts to transition from Luigi 2.0 to, that Sonic guy.
I know people hate Tails. I don't. I find him lovable. Especially in newer interpretations, he's a lot more competent in general. Because they've leaned heavy from Adventure Armor. They lean into the fact that he's he's a technological whiz kid.
Well, and also the whole idea of this sort of meta awareness of not necessarily that they're in a cartoon or in a comic or in a video game, but this awareness of how this is a consistent cycle and that there's nothing really in danger, but the fun is in the journey. And so Tails starts to take his first steps from, oh my God, I have the Sonic plushie in my room to, yeah, Sonic's a bit of a dick, but he's fun to hang out with.
Oh, and I do genuinely love the part in Adventure 2 where he thinks Eggman kills Sonic and is like, I'm not giving up. I'm going to take you on by myself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the closest thing to an arc is those games is kind of Tails growing up and being like, that makes me wish they tried giving him his own game again because all he got was some Game Gear stuff.
Well, and then we'll touch on that later. And I think that's a trend that kind of that started with this game, with Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, and Sonic Heroes. And I think the reason why he and Knuckles and all the others don't have their own game, we'll hit upon with Shadow later on.
Two things I want to talk on in terms of presentation, because I know one is pretty much hated and one is give or take. The fact that from this point they shifted it to like real world locales and having humans around. That's always been something that throws people off who started with the Genesis games. Well,
I think that's just unfortunately the nature of the progression of one to 3D and 2 the nature of the storytelling.
Yeah, and the game industry in general.
Yeah, well, because like unfortunately there are no in a 2D game, because of the simplified nature of the storytelling, you don't have to show the stakes. The audience can sort of infer the stakes.
Yeah, or the expanded or the world beyond these stages.
Mm-hmm. But suddenly when you're trying to tell a story and you're trying to actually tell it, suddenly it becomes, well, why do I care if Eggman made off with the Master Emerald or the Chaos Emeralds? Oh, snap, he blew up the moon.
Station Square's flooded.
Yeah, and it's like you have this context for it because people are actually suffering, as opposed to Knuckles telling us that his island will crash into the ocean and I should apparently care about this.
Oh, can I just say one of the most awkward things is, so Adventure 2, it came out in the battle port came out in early 2002, and then you have a part where like Eggman is talking to the president, and it's like a global crisis, and he's doing like terrorist ransom. I'm like, this is a weird time to have this, but it's just unfortunate coincidence.
Oh yeah, because that was like 2000.
The Dreamcast version came out like a month before 9/11.
Yeah,
if it had come out after, they would have edited that scene.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you ever hear about that Dreamcast game, Propeller Arena?
No, I've never heard of that.
This was just the most unfortunate timing. They had a game that was pretty much done. It was going to have airplane dogfight battles and be online, including a level where you were in a city, the plane could technically crash into them. And it got canceled solely because 9/11 happened, and they could delay it, but the Dreamcast was about to end anyway, so they just went, fuck it.
Yeah, so, I mean, and that's sort of this weird
It was a weird time.
Well, not just weird. There's another discussion to be had about hypotheticals versus real world consequences.
Yeah,
you saw that with Marvel Comics when they tried to do the issue after the World Trade Center went down, where Dr. Doom and the Kingpin and Magneto are helping out with the effort, and dropping an asteroid on New York, totally fine. A bunch of terrorists driving and I think I lost you again.
I heard a bunch of terrorists driving.
Well, the idea of like hypothetical consequences in a fictional setting, we can understand that. We can process that.
Yeah.
The second that you make that it happens in the real world, it becomes very real for us, even in a fictional setting.
Yeah, well, I mentioned when Chris and I did our Transformers episode, and we watched like the shitty 2001 anime. It started on like September 9th, so they've scrambled to edit out like scenes of building destruction in later episodes. But anyway, this is a tangent we probably shouldn't stick on.
Yeah, because that gets very depressing very quickly.
Yeah, we're not. Well, I think this discussion is going to get very depressing when we move on. Mm-hmm. So the other thing that I do love about the Adventure series that they changed going forward is the style of the soundtrack.
Yeah. Oh my God. I
Crush 40.
forgot about that. Well, not just Crush 40, but how the soundtrack informed your character.
And the environment. I love the Mystic Ruins soundtrack. Just this world, like chorus.
Well, there's a funny story behind that.
What?
They actually went to either Peru or Brazil to do research for their new Sonic game. And so they were so in love with the ruins and what they found that they came up with that Mystic Ruins area. Yeah.
Nice. And I'm sure they drew from the music for that music stylings. But I still love the fact that they gave each character a theme song.
Well, and that's where it gets kind of wonky, because I mean, like,
Well, we get the Knuckles rap.
Well, and there's the problem with Knuckles is that, oh, by the way, so this kid has dreadlocks. His shoes are the color of the Jamaican flag, and I kid you not, his favorite food are grapes.
At least they're not watermelons.
Oh God, yeah. And then, oh, by the way, just to hammer it home even further, all his music is rap.
Do you know who did that rap?
A guy named Honeyed P.
Oh, I think that was in Adventure 2. The guy in Adventure 1 was the voice of Parappa.
Oh, well, okay, so I guess you're killing two birds with one stone.
By the way, that guy's name, Dread Fox.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But it's weird because it got weird in other places too. Like, oh, how do you know Rouge is sexy? She gets the jazz. She gets the R&B jazz.
Oh, and we'll get to it later. I remember when I watched the dub of Sonic X, because 4Kids dubbed it, and they always did their own in-house music for dubs. Whenever Rouge showed up, they played, like, they added, like, sexy saxophone, like the last company you'd expect to embrace that.
Yeah.
But Rouge I think she's a fun character, isolated from what the internet has done with her.
Well, of course, and I think
or any Sonic character.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is that it's just that those music stylings also fit those characters' personalities.
Yes.
Like, of course, Sonic gets mid-2000s rock.
Matter now what
Happens,
I will never give up the fight. I love that song.
Yeah, and it's like Sonic gets like mid-2000s rock.
Tails gets more laid back. Amy gets peppy pop. Big gets a goofy duet. E102 just gets instrumental, I think. That like piano.
Well, it's like because E102 gets like this sort of weird futuristic techno.
It's very mellow.
Yeah, and then Eggman gets like this sort of metal, but not like butt rock metals. Like
are you talking about in Adventure 1?
Oh, I'm just talking about as a whole because there's themes.
Adventure 2 he gets I am the Eggman. They should have said I am the walrus.
Yeah.
Oh, and also Adventure 2 is when they stopped calling him Robotnik, which I still miss.
Well, I mean, let's go into the story of that.
Yeah, because for those who didn't play the early games, from the first game up to Adventure 1 in America, he was Dr. Robotnik. In Japan, he was always Eggman, and from Adventure 2 forward, they incorporated that.
Yeah, because it became this sort of, it was this very interesting preposition where, like, in the United States, especially in the 90s, but I don't think we've ever really outgrown it, we have this need to make things very...
edgy.
A very immature idea of mature. If you go to the website TV Tropes calls it American Kirby is hardcore.
The angry eyebrows on every cover.
And so the idea is that we wouldn't take an evil scientist who turns people into robotics' worst nightmare seriously if we called him Dr. Eggman.
Yeah.
So we called him Dr. Ivo Robotnik, which still works.
I like it.
But then suddenly the advent of 3D, and more specifically, the advent of voice acting, and you have to reconcile those because the lip flaps don't match.
Yeah, especially when you do like anime like Sonic X with that.
Like where it's like, oh, Eggman, 2 syllables, Robotnik. Rather, Ivo Robotnik, suddenly you have 5 syllables. That's
well, I mean, they didn't say Robotnik. I mean, no, they didn't say Ivo that much. But Robotnik is still... have they said that's the reason, mainly the lip flaps? I thought it was just like synchronicity.
Well, exactly. I mean, that falls into that. That whole, like, we need to mash things together. And that's going to become even more important when the cartoons and later the comics become involved.
Yeah, and actually, just closest thing Nintendo's encountered to that, up till Mario 64, Peach was Princess Toadstool, including, like, if you play Mario RPG or, like, watch the cartoons of those. And that was, I think that definitely was changed just for synchronicity. But it was I think it was less of a big deal because there wasn't quite as much visual media and voice acting referred to as that.
Well, I mean, even then, it goes even earlier than that. Like you remember watching the Super Mario Brothers Super Show where they bounced between New York and Mushroom Kingdom, and then it's implied that they were always from New York but trapped in Mushroom Kingdom. Yeah, the
cartoons, movies, and original games went with the backstory of Mario Brothers getting sucked in. Yeah.
Well, and then suddenly, before Super Mario 64, suddenly there comes Yoshi's Island, which says...
Yes.
They've always been.
They were born there. Yeah. Well, Chris and I talked about, like, Miyamoto likes to retcon stuff. Like, now he's saying, like, the Koopalings are not Bowser's kids, and that Mario's last name actually is Mario.
Which, I mean, he is what it is. What it is.
Yeah.
But, like, it's always interesting how localization, especially in a growing global economy, changes everything.
Right. Oh, one other last thing, because I'm sure we will bring him in the cartoons. The existence of Sonic taking place on planet Mobius. The original cartoons and apparently the manuals of the old game said this is planet Mobius, but from Adventure onward, and it's like, no, it's Earth.
Yeah, which is funny because then eventually it becomes less Earth and it's Sonic's World. What's Sonic's World called? Sonic's World.
Oh, especially X.
Yeah. Where they're like, wait, did we just universally agree that this is going to be called Sonic's World? Yes. Knuckles, what do you think? Screw that idea.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Nobody cares what Knuckles thinks. It's Sonic's World. I didn't agree to this.
Yeah, because if you get to Unleashed, then all the countries they're analogies for other countries, but they have their own names.
Yeah.
Did they ever say Earth in Unleashed, or did they just say the world?
No, Eggman just calls it Sonic's World, and we just kind of take it as his word.
Oh, yeah. Okay, but we should probably start moving on to the other games. We've been going on an adventure for so long.
Let's tackle the transition between the dark period with from the transition point with Heroes and Shadow.
Yes, this was where I think that this is where the dark cycle began for me and a lot of others, and the Sonic cycle. If people aren't aware of that meme, it's basically the cycle of a Sonic game is first announced, we get excited, we get more details, and it doesn't look as good. It comes out as bad, and we're disappointed. But then it starts anew when the next game is announced,
which is fascinating because I think that only happened for 2 games.
Which ones?
Shadow and 06.
06 definitely. Shadow I was never excited for, but we'll get to it. Heroes I was excited for because just seeing screenshots and hearing about the concepts, it still was you're technically playing as 12 characters, but they're 3 repeated play styles. Sonic's type characters were more about speed, Tails type characters were about flight, navigation, and Knuckles was all about power. And that applied to the other 3 groups. I love the fact that they were bringing back the Chaotix. I never played Knuckles Chaotix. I heard it's not very good. But the Archie comics had them. So I was like, oh, those guys. And
yeah.
It was cool to see. It was also cool that they brought back Shadow and another version of E102 because, those were both supposed to be dead after the adventure games.
Yeah, that was my reason for getting into Heroes was, oh hey, they brought back Shadow, and I guess I'll play as the other 2 too.
Well, I like the new robot, Gamma, but yeah, I remember that being a game that made me go, I'm not going to blind purchase Sonic games anymore. It didn't come together in a satisfying whole.
And also, do we want to talk spin-offs? Because I feel like there's also
yeah. If you want to bring up any spin-offs, go for it.
Because during this dark period, there was also what I would like to call the beginning of salvation was actually happening on the side. So one of the things that we forgot to mention because it's so ubiquitous to us is that after Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic lost his home.
Yes, Sega went third party, and we were getting Sonic on
the GameCube, the PS2, and the Xbox,
and GBA.
And so while this was happening, while Sonic Adventure 2 was coming out, Sega passed the license off, at least on the handheld mount, to THQ to do some ports. And so basically what they did is they took the Sonic Adventure designs, the quote-unquote modern Sonic designs, and applied them to
you compare, if you look at Sonic Generations, from Adventure onward, he was taller, lankier, spikier.
And I lost you again.
I was just saying, if you look at classic Sonic and compare, that's he underwent underwent redesigns from Dreamcast onward. But
and so they took those redesigns and applied them to a Genesis style game engine and layout, and we got what was known as the Sonic Advance trilogy.
Yeah, that was the first throwback to old school style.
Mm-hmm. And so what happened is the first game was developed by THQ, it wasn't
Dimps or Sega. It was THQ themselves.
I think it was. I know the publisher was THQ, but right. I think the I don't know if Dimps was on hand for that first one.
Okay,
but
with the sequels where they came on board.
Yeah, so they handed it off to a second party developer called Dimps, and so Sonic has always had this problem with believing his own hype, wherein you gotta go fast. And the thing is that the games have the idea of the most successful Sonic games have never really been truly about simply speed, but more about momentum and keeping up that speed.
And also exploration. The best Sonic games give you plenty of alternate paths with goodies and stuff to find.
Exactly. And so Dimps kind of bit into they bought into the whole gotta go fast hype. So what would eventually become Boost to Win, quote unquote, or the Boost formula started with the Advanced series.
I thought it started with Rush.
Well, we're getting to that.
Okay.
So in Advance 2, like Advance was basically Sonic, wasn't basically a updating of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Mm-hmm.
Advance 2.
It included Amy for the first time in a side scroller.
As a playable
the classic
character.
3, yeah.
Yeah. And so
her debut was technically in CD, just being kidnapped.
Yeah, and so in Advance 2, they would go more in depth about the speed. They wouldn't give you a manual control for a boost option. However, if you could maintain your speed for a few seconds, Sonic would enter what was known as a boost state.
Yeah, he would get like all flashy. There would be like after images of him left behind.
Yeah, and so and the thing is that the stages really facilitated that. Most of them were about just hold right to win, which was very frustrating because that's how I broke my first Game Boy Advance.
You broke your GBA playing Sonic Advance?
Oh, Sonic Advance too, because like I would always be mashing down on the right button, and then eventually it got stuck that way, and you'd have to mash right in order to get it to work. So I had that and the Sonic Heroes soundtrack to keep me busy, so it was all good.
Sonic Heroes still had a good soundtrack. Do you want to get back to Heroes?
Well, I want to still keep with Advance, and then we're going to go bounce back into Heroes. So Advance 2 was basically where that sort of emphasis on speed came in, and it wasn't a bad game.
No, they're not the worst, but I remember the level design wasn't that great. Games gets a lot of flack for too many pits and spikes in their design. And
there wasn't really a lot of room for exploration.
No, in fact, and they're still very trial and error games as Sonic side scrollers go.
Well, and as far as the speed goes, they were actually too fast. It was only until recently that speedrunners were able to sort of find a proper route to start speedrunning.
Especially, before
2.
GBA emulation and save states were a thing, that tiny dark screen didn't do anything. And the bonus stages, oof. The advanced one, like the Sonic 2 bonus and 3 bonus stages are tough, but I find them fun. Advanced 1 was not fun.
Well, and also just accessing them was a pain.
Because was it you get to find specific locations like the big rings in Sonic 3? Yeah,
because like as you stated, you couldn't. There was not much room for exploration, and it's mitigated with Tails, Knuckles, and the newcomer Cream the Rabbit, who can
she made her debut in Advance 2, not Heroes.
Yeah, and who can all do some variation of either flight or just mobile vertical traversal. But when you're playing as Sonic and you're expected to do everything with him too, suddenly, how do I get back up there? Well, there's no ramps, there's no springs. I can't get back up there. Sonic, you're useless.
And then I never played 2 and I barely played 3, but it got even harder because you had to like collect Chow to find the punch level.
Well, I mean, I was gonna save 3 for after Shadow because there's some GBA ramifications that become really important because of Shadow.
Oh, okay.
But,
do we get back to Heroes then?
Yeah, let's go back to Heroes.
Yeah, I only played it through it once, and I immediately sold it off. But I just remember it just doesn't feel as good as the good parts of Adventure. And it almost feels like it got a graphical downgrade too. Like the environments were even more creative. I do like that they got less real world ground and went back to more fantastical environments like in Genesis days. But the actual character detail and stuff didn't look as good as Adventure 2. And I remember being mad back then they really de-emphasized story in it.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a sort of frustrating issue of
newer Sonic games too.
Well, yeah, but also the story was getting a little too unwieldy.
Oh, it's convoluted?
Yeah, where they tried to simplify it back down to Eggman's up to no good again, but with a twist. And so that didn't quite work out as well. And as far as the models go, I didn't feel those models, and I didn't feel the animation.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, there was more imagination to the levels, but the characters themselves just didn't. I think part of it might have been because this was the first. This was one to launch on multi-platform. It wasn't just Dreamcast. It wasn't just GameCube. It was GameCube, PS2, and Xbox. And I've heard bad things about the PS2 version.
Yeah, it's fascinating because Sega was all set to release it on just the GameCube, and but then Sony and Microsoft made bids for it, and it was easier to port to the Xbox, but the PS2 was so hard to port to that it actually.
Apparently, the PS3 was even harder because of its format.
Yeah, and so it was so hard to rewrite the engine to promote parity with the with the Xbox and GameCube versions that all three suffered. Which
and that I wonder if that affected the game's overall quality as a whole, since they had to devote more time to porting it. Which we'll get to a similar situation with 06 later. But it just never clicked. I thought the multi-ability thing was neat in concept, but it really just slowed the game down in a way that didn't really click.
Because it was never as intuitive as because with two characters, you can go and play the Mario and Luigi RPG series or Donkey Kong Country. Yeah. When you only have to switch between two characters, it's not that big of a deal. You just tap a button. Suddenly you have to. Yeah, you have to switch to the one who has the most utility in any given situation. Yeah. And then worse with the game actually not branching out enough to for you to have utility with the two separate characters.
Yeah. Also, I remember the only one that felt satisfying in terms of what it was trying to do was I liked, meleeing guys with Knuckles as the power class. Yeah. But it was really frustrating when you tried to attack with Sonic or Tails, and now enemies have health bars, so you had to hit them over and over. I legit do love because they introduced the homing attack in Adventure 1 and 2, since, trying to hit enemies at that speed in 3D, they knew that would be difficult. So they were like, okay, Sonic can, if you jump in the air and then press the jump again, he'll lock on and attack enemies. And that's something I've always found really satisfying when done right in 3D Sonic games, doing just those chains of boom, one guy to another, boom, one guy to another. And then even the new ones, you can bowling pin them into others. But this was more just hit the same guy over and over and over, or just awkwardly switch. Just that kind of stuff. Oh, also, the characters were not shut up in this game. Similar to stuff like Boom, just really useless observations about. I just remember Cream going, "There's so many bad robots." I'm like, what an astute observation, Cream.
It's this unfortunate imbalance of character to necessity of dialogue. Yeah, you'll find that come Lost World and Colors, and to a certain extent Unleashed and Generations.
Forces look like it's going to be this the same way.
They find that balance for doing anything other than reading or listening, paying attention. So it's not a big deal. But when you have to focus on a task and this character will not shut up, then it becomes a problem. And also the writing was the writing. This is also an issue that would haunt the games until Colors. Wherein they would switch to American writers, but what they would do is they would translate from Japanese, where it's more benign and it's
kind of awkward.
Not just awkward, but the characters feel muted. Americans have a reputation for being rude. Yeah, but when it comes to that sort of interaction, that's a strength because it promotes more conflict with the characters and therefore more hilarity when they play off of each other. Mm-hmm. In the Adventure series, when you're just translating from what a character who to an American is at best milk toast, Sonic in Japan is aggressive for a Japanese person. He doesn't listen to anybody else. He snoozes when he should be cruising.
He quips.
He quips, but he doesn't. He's not rude.
Well, however, except to Eggman.
But to an American, that's okay. Spider-Man is those qualities, but Spider-Man's also still polite. However, what makes Sonic is that Sonic is aggressively cocky to a level that is dangerous. He pokes people even when he really shouldn't. And while he's courageous, it's sort of to the levels of Goku in Dragon Ball Z, where you're never quite sure whether he's in it to be the good guy or if he's in it just because he's bored. And
I think Goku comes off as more of a good guy than Sonic.
Yeah, exactly.
Goku's just kind of a dope. That's his issue.
And the thing is that cocky Sonic is a lot more fun to watch to an American than milquetoast Sonic. And you can see that transition in the writing from Adventure 2, Heroes, and 06. And then it sort of transitions once American writers are penning the actual story.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But exactly. Do you have anything else you want to talk about with Heroes?
I think Heroes ages better than we give it credit for. But when you're the target demographic, especially after coming off of the highs of
Adventure,
suddenly it's not it doesn't age quite as well. And I think that the ideas, I didn't need to play that game 4 times.
I think Heroes has probably aged better overall than Adventure. I mean, Heroes has aged better, but the problem is its fundamentals were still never as strong.
Agreed. And my last point segues into the next game. I didn't need to play Heroes 4 times to beat the game.
Oh boy.
But it gets worse in the next game, Shadow the Hedgehog, where there are 10 endings that you have to go to.
And no level select for clear levels. You got to start from scratch every time if you want that true ending.
And I think Shadow demonstrates the dangers of quote-unquote listening to the fans.
Yeah, because Shadow was a huge deal after Adventure 2 and Heroes 2. Like, I think he's still probably one of the popular fan characters, and so I guess technically giving him his own game isn't a bad idea on that alone, but how they went with it, because everybody I talked to has had the same reaction to me. When this was first announced, we all thought it was a joke.
Oh, I didn't. I thought it was going to be amazing.
I did not. We got to differ there. I just, like, if this isn't a joke, I'll rent this. And I did rent it. I'm glad I didn't buy it.
Oh, see, I bought it, 10 endings, and then gave it back. But, I mean, the problem with giving Shadow his own game is not so much Shadow in and of himself is a bad idea. It's, what is the gameplay hook going to be?
Oh, boy. That's what made it look stupid to me. Because
the thing is, like, you'll notice that Luigi in Luigi's Mansion never jumps.
Yeah, Luigi's Mansion has its own hook, too, but it still feels more fitting.
That's his own personal trademark. None of the Mario spin-offs, with the exception of Donkey Kong, really feel like a Mario game. And that's very important.
Like Wario and Yoshi have their own style to things.
Like Luigi has his vacuum cleaner. Wario has his not even getting away from the platformers. Wario has his minigame obsessed ADD.
Wario's one of the craziest things Nintendo's ever done. And even in Wario Land, he's all about greed and being gross.
Yoshi is basically
storybook, colorful pastels. Eggs.
Well, it's the idea that you can't power through it with a traditional Mario mindset, because you're going to lose that baby immediately if you do.
And even in games without babies, it's all about the egg aiming and throwing. It's more projectile based.
But the problem you run into with Shadow is that, okay, what does Shadow have that Sonic can't already do
on his own? Nothing.
I think they were onto something with the guns, but they didn't pursue it the way that they should have. Because you know who did Shadow the Hedgehog, right?
I think I do.
I'm gonna butcher the developer, but Naughty Dog with Jak and Daxter, and
Jack
also
2?
with Jak 2, and also Ratchet and Clank.
I was gonna say Ratchet and Clank. That's one of my favorite series. Because
there's the idea of it's a platformer, but it also involves melee weapons and melee combat.
Yeah, whereas, in Ratchet's case, the weapons were really creative, and in Jack's case, the weapons were standard, but the gameplay was still good to back it up and still mix platforming and variety.
Exactly, but with unfortunately that template didn't exist, or if it did, Sonic Team wasn't willing to pursue it because.
You actually did remind me there was a weird tendency to grid up sequels at that time, because I remember finding the Jak 2 announcement really jarring, even though I ended up liking the sequel. But remember what happened to Prince of Persia?
Yeah, that was weird and dumb.
Yeah, so there was that Shadow. I'm sure I'm thinking of there's some other stuff that I'm not thinking of.
Yeah, and so
it was a weird transitional period.
And so I think that from a gameplay perspective, if you pursued Ratchet and Clank style gun with platforming, you could have had a solid game.
But they didn't.
Yeah, and then from a narrative perspective, everything Shadow we needed to know about Shadow had already been done in Sonic Adventure.
Yeah. The only thing that we really needed to know was how he came back, and it was a really underwhelming Eggman found him and revived him.
Well, and to be honest, Shadow didn't need to come back.
No, but he was so popular.
Like, you could have replaced Shadow with Metal, and that would have been compelling too.
Could have replaced him with who? You cut out.
With Metal Sonic.
Yeah. I remember being excited that he was back for Heroes. Then it's like, no, you're just fighting this big dinosaur version of him.
And I mean, like, hell, you just have like Robotnik sending out a Metal Sonic to be on Rouge's team to go investigate the traitorous Metal Sonic, and then suddenly you have that. I mean, Archie Comics would eventually expand on that idea, but that's for later.
Yeah, Archie expanded on a lot.
And so, while we're on the subject of Shadow, I also want to bring up the Game Boy Advance game, Sonic Battle.
Oh yeah, that.
So, Sonic Battle suffered a very ignominious fate to me. I'm very sad that it happened. Because Sonic Battle was basically Sega's attempt at a Super Smash Brothers.
And I remember it was very technologically impressive for GBA because they found a way to simulate 3D environments. It was like a Luna fighter.
But not only that, but it it was one of the first few mascot fighters that didn't ape Nintendo's flagship directly. I think it was going for more of a Power Stone feel, and I've never played Power Stone, so
like
I can't
I said, 3D.
Yeah, but it was this really cool game wherein Robotnik finds a robot. A robot, and everybody ends up fighting over this robot, and you have this really touching story of basically Mega Man coming into his own as a super fighting robot, and then having to, die horribly because otherwise we'd have to revisit this character later.
Well, they do.
Exactly, which is interesting because it would tie to not just Advance 3, but the ramifications of Battle would have implications for Shadow. Oh,
wasn't Battle released in between Heroes and Shadow? So Shadow was still back with amnesia, but they still didn't know why.
Yeah. Well, it's implied that Battle takes place either during or after Shadow.
Oh, okay. Well, because it would have to be after Heroes. Oh, I was so pissed when I beat the Dark Story and you just get that reveal of a bunch of Shadow clones and tubes, but they don't clarify anything. It's like Rouge has a line like, "Did I ever tell you that Shadow is a robot?" And I'm like, "So is he a robot?" I was pissed that they gave us no answers.
Well, I think they were attempting to maintain that edgy mystery that Shadow had always had.
Yeah, and then Shadow goes to more because he's finding more robot clones, and so many of those endings like "I am Shadow Android" and just ridiculous.
Well, because they're trying to ape that sort of Wolverine paradox.
Yes, absolutely.
This is what I like to call the Wolverine paradox: is Wolverine is cool when you don't know anything about him, but humans are naturally curious creatures, so we do want to know about him.
And then we lose the mystery. Is not as cool.
Exactly, and that happened to Shadow on a much
Exhibit
smaller...
B, Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he was much cooler when we weren't sure if he was Luke's dad or not.
Well, also when we just didn't know all the details about his pre-Vader days. That's what I'm talking about. Pretty much, yeah.
But with Shadow, it was just that mystery was missing. But like going back on Sonic Battle, it's implied that Shadow's creator and Dr. Eggman's grandpa, Gerald Robotnik, got his hands on the robot, and that's when he started exploring the Echidna Society.
Adventure 1, that chaos
not just
show.
Adventure 1, but that would predict the battle between Sonic and Dr. Eggman in Sonic 3, because there's that mural in Angel Island in Sonic 3 that Knuckles misinterprets as Dr. Eggman fighting against an evil demon, versus where in reality is Sonic fighting the evil Doctor for control of the Master Emerald.
Oh,
and so
I remember this.
It's at the end of Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Oh, that's why I thought you were saying it was in Adventure.
Well, it is in Adventure. That mural is in Adventure.
Is there a cutscene specifically for it?
I don't know where exactly to find it.
Okay, it's probably like an Easter egg.
But it is there.
Okay.
And so it's implied through Battle that Gerald Robotnik based Shadow off of Supersonic.
Okay, because I was wondering why was he a hedgehog? Because when you see the previous experiment, it's a big dinosaur. I'm like, why did he make it a little hedgehog instead?
For reasons. But
Shadow makes it more complicated because it was like, he collaborated with aliens.
Yeah, but Battle does try its best to tie it into it. And then also, not only would Battle tie into Advance 3, which should be our next segue, but also it would also have implications for the BioWare RPG Sonic Chronicles, which we'll get into later.
I can't believe how caught up in the lore we've gotten. The lore is more interesting than the actual Shadow games and stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And from a gameplay perspective, Shadow is a 6 out of 10. It's solid.
I think Heroes was a 6 and Shadow was more of a 5, because my problem was it felt like very lazily pasting gunplay on top of standard Sonic mechanics. Like, you really need to be able to properly strafe and aim, like in Ratchet, for this kind of thing to work.
Well, and my issue with Shadow is that in a vacuum, if you just had to play one level from Shadow, it would probably be broken, but it would be playable. But when you have to do it 10 times for a story that honestly is not that interesting.
No. I remember there was a hubbub because this was we talked about how Adventure 2's voice acting. There have been 2 mass recasts in the series history. This was the first one where, because it was coming out after Sonic X, before Sega decided from now on we'll just use that 4Kids cast.
In fact, actually, we should talk about Sonic X while we're here, because this is
okay. Do you want to save all the cartoons for later? Or do you want to bring this one up now?
Oh, I just kind of wanted to bounce everything in on their proper timelines, and anything we missed, we can just come back to.
We already missed the first a lot of the cartoons. We'll come back to them. Yeah, let's talk Sonic X.
So Sonic X, this is, I don't want to say it's the height of Sonic's popularity, because I would say that was back in the 90s.
That was the 90s, but this is the late Dreamcast era was probably the second highest too. Yeah.
And so there was an anime called Sonic X. Mm-hmm. And
I was let down because when it was first announced, they weren't showcasing the human characters.
Well, I think Sonic X demonstrates, like a lot of cartoons from the 90s, video game cartoons and adaptations from the 90s, is that you need some sort of narrative. Like, adapting the story of a game is very different from adapting the story of
It's weird. Like, the first half of the series was its own plot. Then all of a sudden, they started adapting every game.
And it's a sort of frustrating issue in that, like, this is something I tell my students at my day job, is the main character of a video game isn't actually that character. The main character is the player. So the player is the main protagonist, and it's not the story of Mario saving the princess. It's the story of how John became, mastered the mechanics of playing Super Mario Sunshine and became a better puzzle solver by himself in and of itself.
So you think that's what the intention was with Chris?
Well, and that's the issue with a lot of these characters, is that, like, Sonic is a compelling protagonist, but he's not particularly proactive.
And he doesn't, like, grow as a character either.
And I don't think that's with the character as
we were talking about Tails earlier.
Well, as the character as aggressive as Sonic, for that kind of story, you don't necessarily need growth, or at least not in that direction. But you do need a reason for him to be physically active every episode. And Eggman is not inherently going to provide that on his own. Plus, Sonic also suffers from the Wolverine mystery of we know more about Shadow than we do about Sonic. And
Sonic doesn't really have a backstory. I'm not even sure how old he's supposed to be. I think he's a teenager?
15 as of the Sonic Heroes instruction booklet.
Okay, yeah. I've always been like, is he a teen or a young adult? I legit can't tell.
Although I think the fandom likes to age him up to whatever his current year of.
I think it's because the longer you go, the more his voice tends to sound older. Like the current guy, Roger Craig Smith, he makes that's like the deepest Sonic voice we've ever gotten. So it's like that's a weird voice for a teen.
Yeah, so like with Sonic X, like you have a protagonist who's not particularly proactive, a villain who can't really be as monstrous as he needs to be, because then the show would be the tone would shift.
I mean, I feel from this point onward, except for 06, Eggman became more of a clown than a menace.
Yeah, and then you have a cast of characters who is similarly very reactive, and they're all dependent on that first reactive character who's not very proactive in and of himself. And I think also this is where sort of American culture and Japanese culture sort of clash, in that the Sonic that would spin out of Colors and into Sonic Boom would make for a compelling protagonist.
I feel like he has in Boom at least he has kind of more of a morality to him sometimes.
But the lackadaisical take every day as it comes Sonic from Heroes and Adventure, not very compelling. So you invent characters who can become compelling, and that's where you have the humans.
I didn't think they were compelling though. For the most part.
They weren't. They weren't at all.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and so then, and also I think you also have the limitations imposed by Sega in what Sonic can and cannot do, and where he is allowed to go and not go as a character. So were they actually very restrictive with X? They're restricted with everything Sonic. It is very explicit that Sonic is not allowed to feel any sort of negative emotion or take any sort of meaningful defeat from Dr. Eggman.
Oh well, there you go.
Like the last scene of the first season, where Sonic is carrying Chris, and it's implied that Sonic is crying. We're not allowed to see that on screen. We just see a stream of crystals. Like
I remember the only episode that, because I gave up on it pretty fast, but I revisited, I guess it was the first season's either midpoint or finale. They actually, because it wasn't effective, the introduction of Super Sonic, where basically Sonic almost dies.
Well, they were aping Dragon Ball Z, which, to be fair, they're always aping Dragon Ball Z.
Super Sonic is so Super Saiyan, but it's like Sonic is beaten half to death, and like Chris freaks out, and I'm like, that's kind of effective, but that's about it. I know, like there are a lot of Sonic X fans out there because I've seen like so many like fan accounts dedicated to it, and I think a lot of people because they ended it at a certain point, but then they just made another season out of nowhere, which sounds crazy, where it's like they go into space fighting the Metarex, and...
Well, and this ties into the whole idea of stakes.
And it becomes more... I do know it's kind of Tails' story, because he ends up befriending like a good alien who has to sacrifice herself or something.
Well, we gotta rewind back to 9/11.
Okay.
9/11 had a massive impact on how storytelling was told.
Yes.
In the same way that sort of like 90s, 80s, you couldn't put actual guns in the cops' hands, so the cops got lasers, and you're like, why?
And then later they got walkie-talkies.
Yeah, and so
movies.
In the first series, you can't show the scale of destruction that Eggman would realistically unleash.
Right. He has to be more of a mischief maker. Yeah.
But suddenly, in the second season, when it takes place on Sonic's world, where there isn't a Tokyo or a California or
doesn't
New
it
York,
like fuse with Earth?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
They bring Chris and his friend. They bring Chris over, and he ages to a kid because we don't want to see adult Chris.
Wait, are you talking about the Metarex season?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought. Oh yeah, I guess the original was one season, and then that was the second season. Yeah, it was all.
Yeah, and so suddenly you're in space with aliens that you care about enough of to identify with, but not enough to worry if they're going to have a negative impact on your kids. And suddenly Sonic can go balls crazy. And so that's a thing. And it's what's very fascinating about that. I need to talk to you about.
Okay, I lost you at what's very fascinating.
What's fascinating is that this actually ties into something that we're going to have to tangent into later. Is that Archie eventually did a tie-in spin-off adaptation of Sonic X.
Yes, they did.
Wherein Dr. Eggman goes through an entire character arc.
And actually, I remember, we'll get to it later, but both Archie Sonic and Sonic Set AM, I remember there were points where Sonic would feel down about stuff. So maybe that was like an exception to Sega's rules.
Well, it was never so permanent that it was never a meaningful defeat. It was usually it was sort of either halfway in the arc or halfway in the issue sort of thing, but never a complete defeat. And I don't think Sega would really relent until a game that we will talk about later.
Yeah. And just anything else you want to say about Shadow, the game?
It was the beginning of the end.
It was. I think that was our sign that it was like, Heroes was not a fluke. This could be the new norm. Also, but I did want to say, since we went on this tangent because talking about the voice cast, like a lot of people hate the 4Kids voice cast in all things, and I actually don't. I just didn't like that they recycled the same voice actors so often. I will say, I wasn't a big fan of this Sonic or Tails. Like Sonic sounded too permanently happy. Like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, lay it off. Back that scale down a little bit, guy.
I think that goes into two problems. One, the writing.
Yeah.
It's not written for. It's a translated Sonic, not a.
It still is. Yeah, we're not.
It's written for Junichi Kanemaru, not for Jason Griffith.
Okay, for those who don't know, that's the Japanese voice actor and the 4Kids actor.
4Kids Sonic. And then number two, directing.
Yeah.
Because you see it, Mike Pollock the English director, the English voice actor for Dr. Eggman.
Yeah.
He hit his stride pretty much immediately.
Yeah. I just want to touch on, one, I remember I liked Knuckles' voice actor, but the fact that it was Dan Green, meant no one could not hear Yugi. It was distracting. Yeah. But, Mike Pollock, not only was I think everybody's favorite, but when they did the second recast later, they kept him. He was the lone holdover because everybody was like, no, this guy, he's kind of dead on.
It'll take more than that to defeat us.
Yeah, and so the thing is that, it would take until Unleashed for Jason Griffith to sort of find his speed as Sonic.
And then he was gone one game later.
Yeah. But I mean, heck, even Dan Green is a great example. If you watch Yu-Gi-Oh!, he has amazing range.
No, I liked the 4Kids voice actors as acters. It's just, it's other elements.
The writing and the directing.
Yeah, I still love watching their Pokemon dub.
So there's that. But then everything would sort of...
Yeah. Okay, actually, you know what? I got to tell you right here... So my recording is at an hour 15. We're only halfway through, and this could be our longest episode ever. So if it's okay with you, I think we need to just take a break and so I can render what we have so far.
Sure.
Because now we're about to start getting really dark games-wise.
All right.
All right, let me 1 second. And as it turns out, you're going to need to wait a little more for the truly dark experience that is Sonic 06 and some other stuff. and our discussion on the sort of rebound the series has made, and more ups and downs, culminating with our thoughts on Sonic Mania. Our full episode recording clocked in at over 3 hours, and since editing a normal length episode takes time enough as is, I've chosen to split it up into 2 episode halves, a podcast first for this series, and you will be getting the second half where we talk about Sonic 06, some of the Wii games, Sonic Unleashed, Colors, Generations, Lost World, probably some other spin-offs, and culminating in our thoughts on Sonic Mania. Also, we basically ran out of time to discuss the comics and cartoons we were building up, and the 3 of us later decided that will be our next proper episode. We will finally get Chris back, and all 3 of us will sit down and talk the Sonic comics and cartoons. No date for that just yet, but you can count on the second half that I talked about, discussing the remaining Sonic games very soon. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening, and gotta go fast. I don't know, that's all I got.
Here I come, rougher than Knuckles. The best of them, tougher than Knuckles. You can call me Knuckles, unlike Knuckles, I don't chuckle. I'd rather flex my knuckles. I'm hard as Knuckles, it ain't hard to chuckle. I break them down whether they knuckles. Unlike Knuckles, I'm independent since my first chuckle. First Knuckles, still the Knuckles, then no Knuckle chuckle. Oh no, 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 chuckle. Oh no.